All right, so we are live. Hello, Facebook, and welcome to Startup Business Q&A number 93. And it's going to be a really quick one today. I've had 10 people, 10 of us staying at this house over the bank holiday weekend. I'm not glistening too much, but it's certainly a hot day today. So I've got a few questions come through, and of course, as I'm always saying, consistency is king, right? So every week, make sure you show up, and week 93, it needs to be no different, other than about 6 months ago when I stopped because of an appointment, having a surgery, so I was technically unconscious on that Monday. Otherwise, always show up. So even with people here in the heat and the holiday and things like that, make sure you still deliver where you should. So hi everyone for jumping in, and thanks so much for doing so. Laura, Ian, Wayne, Colleen, all of you, good to see you here. Let's jump straight in. I've got a number of questions here. We're looking at productivity, we're looking at accountability, things like that, time management and so on. If you have a question relating to that field, then do jump in and ask. But otherwise, let's jump into the first question from Anna Suricio, and she's asked, number one, when you are first getting started, what top 3 things would you focus on in operational or marketing or strategy? And the answer is you should be doing all 3, really. This is a really good question because a lot of people kind of think, well, where do I go first? There are some things that just matter at the beginning and some things that just don't matter at the beginning. At the very end, there are some things that really are going to matter. But at the very, very, very beginning, you need to go all out on building a product that you can get into hands of people. I was meeting a developer for a video game today, and he showed me the broad stroke of that video game. He showed me his proof of concept. The guy's gone to pitches with this, and it's literally the raw game. Like, it doesn't work properly and things like that. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Colleen. Thanks for the messages. And that's a perfect example of what's called an MVP. So minimum viable product. You need the product first, because then you can start talking about it. In terms, Anna, of marketing, I would be all over sharing the journey and the build and all of the steps along the way. People say you should document. Some people say you should create. I think you should be trying to do both, to be honest. One thing that worked really well for me with previous courses I've launched is when I was starting to build the course, I had already started the marketing, which means this is the way to do it. If you want to write up notes on this, as early as possible, meaning even before your product is ready as a draft or basic version to get into the hands of the market, before that even, you should be warming up your audience, which means you don't wait till the product is ready to start marketing it. You start the process of getting that audience keen on what you're doing before the release. So pre-release warming up of the audience, and focus in on massive amounts of great content, documenting the rise of the product. And then you of course, when you have the product ready, you've got people who are warming about it. Dahananjay Verma's just asked a question here. Hi, what about when the product is you or yourself? Great question. This is exactly what I did with me. Well, if you're warming up your audience about yourself, it's the same thing. Maybe you're going to sell some consulting services, for instance. No one will buy anything unless they're familiar with you, they trust you, they feel comfortable with you. So again, you need to get yourself out in the sense of some form of content to warm that audience up. You can, if you're good, and I was able to do this at the beginning, but it's because I've got loads and loads of years experience in selling. But I could suggest that you jump onto messaging straight away and finesse your way through conversations to close people. Good for you if you've got that ability. But in the main, a more profitable approach is that for the short run, but also the long-term play of putting great content out so people start feeling familiar with you. Hey, something like a Q&A like this, right? After 93 weeks, it gives you some sense that, or your audience, some sense that you perhaps have some idea about what you may be doing. Otherwise, you would have canned it by then. So, yeah, Laura, great to agree with that. So great advice. Start building an audience as early as possible. So Anna, that's what I would be suggesting. When you're first getting started, I would be focusing on getting the product ready, but simultaneously starting to share the news about what it is you're doing. Thumbs up if you guys agree with me. If someone doesn't agree, I have no problem at all. I'd love to hear your views here as well. But that's a really important way to look at things. In terms of strategy, don't overthink it. In terms of business plans, don't overthink it. Get the product ready functioning in a basic way. There's so many people I'm talking to at the moment about this where they're like, I just want it to be right, I just want to do this, just want to do that. Get something out there and build your products as people are starting to give you feedback on it. 8-Step Startup, the course, that's 73 lessons. When I launched it or pre-launched it, there were 6 lessons, that was it. And people were buying it, obviously a good price, but also it was early beta testers, if you like, and they bought into this idea. They got in early as early adopters, and after the first 6 lessons, there were more coming through, and it helped me build it as well at the same time. So thumbs up if that makes sense. That's the way I look at it, to be honest, and hopefully that helps you, Dan and Jay Verma. Shout out to everyone on the podcast listening right now, or because obviously retrospectively you'll be listening, and again to Sky Geiger last week, who produced the new intro. If you haven't heard it yet, even if you hate this stuff, at the very least go through to richardmoore.com or go to my SoundCloud. You can see it there, and you'll hear the new intro of the podcast. It's awesome. I do like it a lot. So that's good. A couple of people asked me about the operation. So sometimes you make mistakes. And this was a massive mistake, so it's all embarrassing, but I'm going to share it here because I just don't care. It's good to move on. I was led to believe, through myself, misreading a letter, that actually last week was going to be my operation. So I was all prepped and had prepped my family for this operation, and because I'd had 2 consulting sessions already, and turned out to be another consulting session, so that was really embarrassing. So we had that last week. I have to have bloods this week, and then in probably about 6 or 7 weeks I'll have an operation. So thanks to everyone who asked me about that. You'll know soon enough when I have the operation, because I'll actually not be able to be around, but that was very kind of people to ask how it all went. Let's jump on to another question here from Daniel Nunes. I see that you're online, so thanks so much, Daniel, for jumping in. And you've asked, Richard, what are your thoughts on the qualities of a good accountability partner? The qualities... So, without question, just so if people aren't aware, an accountability partner is someone you're almost reporting to. So even if you're your own boss, even if you're a CEO, and I work with plenty of people who run their own companies who use me for this, the idea is that you have someone you kind of send a report to or something like that for accountability. It's like when you say to someone that you're going to do something, you almost emotionally owe them, don't you? So like a good example would be if you're going to run a marathon, you would post on social that you're going to run a marathon, and all your friends and family know you're doing it, and of course then it means you really should follow through on it. So it really makes a difference doing that. In terms of qualities, without question, it's not so much a quality, but it's an essential part of this, Daniel. Without question, you have to respect that person you're being accountable to. And what I mean by that is, hopefully you respect everyone, but the idea is that you respect them or hold them at such a level that you look up to them, at least in the sense of accountability, or at the very least in terms of the business area you're in. I had this to start with very long time ago. There was a millionaire guy who's in his 60s now, and he was a fantastic accountability partner because I made a point of reporting to him almost and saying, here's what I'm up to. The thought of writing him a message or an email each week and telling him, oh yeah, I haven't really done much, I haven't really bothered doing anything, the embarrassment would have been terrible, especially because he was a family friend. So you want to do good by him. It's not because I owe him or I need to prove myself, but if you need accountability, then that's the kind of person to go for. You need someone who's done well. Okay, someone who's made it in a sense, someone you look up to, someone you would be embarrassed almost to tell that you didn't complete your task with, because that means it'll drive you to do it, and often that's the thing that helps. For me, accountability never really works with money. If I buy something, it doesn't mean I'm going to use it, but certainly if there's someone I work with, or if I feel potentially that I might let someone down if I don't follow through on something, that's all I need. So for me, accountability is always people, never money. It's just how I'm built, I think. But in terms of qualities, you need the guy to be available to a degree. But more than anything, you need to look up to them. It matters. It doesn't work otherwise as well, because you can kind of game someone who's on your level a bit, whereas you just naturally move to this place where you wouldn't want to screw over or let down that person you look at a higher level. when you feel like you're crushing it, you don't necessarily need accountability partners. My accountability is built in. My personal accountability is more with my customers. Like, to drop the ball would be awful, because they would really, really be pissed off, because I'm doing a lot for them. But at the same time, my accountability goes a step further than that, and it's to my family as well. Because if I was to not bother for a bit, it potentially jeopardizes a situation we're in, which then affects my family, and it's just simply not cool. So that's my view on it. A great question there, Daniel, as well, on accountability. Dahanjay, I hope I'm saying your name right, though. Thumbs up if I am. What's your take on legacy when it comes to creating content online? I'd love you to flesh that question out if you could. But I think what you're asking is, what about content you're producing that's going to be there, many years into the future? Firstly, you should be thinking about two types of content when you're producing. One is evergreen content. That's the stuff that's always relevant. Much of my content is evergreen. And then there's the more topical things as well. So, I've done content in the past about Periscope versus Meerkat, and that's kind of a defunct content right now, but it was useful at the time. But invariably, it's evergreen stuff, which is going to be useful in the future. My view is an interesting one on this. Maybe it's because I'm a parent, I don't know, but my view is that we're in a world now where in the future people are going to be watching you. And I said this to someone last night, actually. I said, my grandchildren will probably catch up with me online. So hi, if you see that. I'm just going to turn the screensaver off. And what that means is, if they're going to see me, then you don't want to be a douche, right? You want to be a cool guy or someone who's useful. And if any of them decide to build a business or something, I'd like to hope that they're watching this right now, hello, and they think that, their granddad was a pretty cool guy and was kind of useful. So I'm kind of always thinking to myself, if you've got family watching you, if you've got your children and your ancestors watching you, what are you producing that's going to be useful for them? I also want to produce content that I feel good about, for me, and so a lot of the things I say in content are great for the people watching, but often I feel like I'm speaking to myself. It's quite interesting, and that's why, in a way, it's good having the kind of the mirror effect of a camera, because then you get this sense of, actually, I'm kind of addressing myself, and often what you say as an answer to a question is actually something that's important to you. But yeah, so in terms of legacy, I think you need to be intelligent about the fact that whatever you produce online will stay there, unless you delete it. But even then, people may have shared it and things like that, or downloaded it and so on. So without question, everything I ever do is done on the basis that one day someone might look at it. When you're sending, and this is important for everyone, when you're sending messages to people, for example, especially new people, you need to be sending a message to that person right then. That's an intimate conversation. But you also need to be producing messages that are watertight, in the sense that in the future, if anything went wrong, there's nothing incriminating there. Don't do anything that you wouldn't be cool with sharing in public. Don't say things you shouldn't. Don't diss people that you shouldn't. And I think working very hard to be diplomatic is important, because for many of us, maybe we don't care about fame and things like that, but it might be that if you become very successful, then you start getting an audience and a following, and what happens then is that you have people starting to look back through your stuff. And this because every so often you get a notification. It's like, some dude wrote a comment on a post I did over a year ago, and they're the ones who are interested in trawling through your stuff. And there's people who might start writing about you. I'm doing an interview tomorrow morning, for instance, for the Successful Male. It's not entirely an interview, but I'm in Forbes. It should be later this week. It gets released. There's an article that's including some of my work. And the more you get in the kind of the public eye like that, the more people are going to start checking out your previous stuff. So if you've got anything out there, imagine if you got to a point where you were super famous or controversial or something like that. You get to a point when the media start trawling through your stuff. You might not care about it, but is there anything in there that's going to screw you? So I always think about the content I'm producing, and as far as I'm aware, I'm absolutely at peace with all the things I've produced. I tend to try and be positive. Someone here has just written, "Don't bash to build." Absolutely right. but I also try and make sure I'm not putting myself in a position where I'm saying something that would offend someone or is out of line that you wouldn't say to their face. And I think that's a good tip for everyone. It's very tempting when you've got people starting to message you who are saying little things. Some people say way more than complimentary things every so often, for instance, and you just got to, keep on your line, because otherwise you might end up getting into a bit of trouble. You never know how some people might be. For instance, in my taekwondo schools, there is a student who is an 18-year-old girl whose parents I'm good friends with, and I drive her to some of the lessons. And that's a perfect example of where you have to be completely appropriate at all times. You must be on form with what you do and what you say and how you act. So you'd always be thinking, and I think that goes a lot for creating content. And to not have that in mind if you're going to be a content creator is potentially quite serious and dangerous, and it could also result in people being having a negative effect on some people's lives. So you need to have that in your head. I think with the kind of the power that you get through social media comes great responsibility as well. So hopefully that's a point well made for you, Dhanjay. Let's look at some of the other comments here. So Daniel, exactly, I don't need someone to coddle me. This is about accountability, I believe. You're speaking to my situation. My assistant is constantly pushing me to follow through, especially on days I don't feel like doing anything. Thank you for your feedback and mentorship. You're welcome. I think that my wife's a really good example. I wouldn't want to let her down, and family really works as well. So sometimes it might be worth sharing that with family. Accountability is different for everyone. Some people I know, they earmark like personal money that they're going to give to, they're just going to give away unless they achieve certain things, and that makes them work. For me, if I had £1,000 sitting in my bank account that I'm just going to give away, if I don't do a task, it's not going to make me work harder. I'm not being flippant about money I've got. I just, it doesn't work for me in the same way as if it was a person I was going to let down. So really good point there, Daniel. Hopefully that makes sense. Thank you. All these wonderful comments here. So let's look at the next question. If you have any questions to add, then do jump in. But let's look at Danny Battershill. Is it better to do a little on all your plans and projects over the course of each day, or better to divide them into sizable chunks for hours per day and spend time directly focusing on one thing at a time? So what he's basically saying is, do you focus in on one thing only and focus on building that, or do you do a little bit on everything if you have time in the day? It's difficult because everyone has different situations, and without question, if I'm all in on a particular project, then stuff just has to wait. And there are people in my team who know this. There are people in my team who are still potentially waiting on certain things that are going to take a bit of time because there are other things that just have to supersede them. Sometimes I have client work and the world has to just stop turning because I'm focusing on that. And I always make sure I fulfill certain things. So family, things like this Q&A, I really find are important, and delivering that each week. But some things just have to give, and that's essential. Without question, I would say you need to be willing to react to the moment, Danny. So what is best? Well, the best ideally is to be able to do bits on all your projects, but sometimes you have to go deep on a project. Some stuff just needs to get done. If it's a sales funnel that you need to build, and that's potentially going to really help generate some income, do you know what? Your content could probably keep for a bit, maybe bring the tide in a bit. I've gone some days down as low as 1 post on social media, and some days as high as 6 posts on social media, because maybe I'm trying to give that a bit more of a nudge, or maybe I'm reeling it back because I've got to check in, but actually it's going to have to keep because I've got to work on this presentation. There are companies who ask me not just to come in and have a nice chat and give them some practical tips. Companies who ask me to build entire learning and development programs for their sales teams. And when there's 40 people who need to be trained at different levels on sales, that's massive. One of the clients recently said to me, could you provide, if we kind of bring you on board, could you provide the rest of this year as a schedule? I'm like, so that's a huge project. So to plan that kind of thing requires massive amount of time. Sometimes you just got to not sleep a bit. But I think it's difficult, Danny, man. I think Across a day, you need to check on all your things. Across a day, I check in with my wife, myself, my children, and my businesses, okay? Within each of those things, I check on different things. So with, for instance, my children, it'll be school or preschool or nursery or their food for dinner. So when you need to, you jump in. And it's the same for the business as well. Right now, you've got to do the accounts. That really needs doing because it's end of year or end of quarter. Or actually, the accounts can keep for a couple of weeks because I've got this larger project. Or maybe I've just got to go and pitch some people for a bit. Ideally, you're kind of keeping all these balls in the air, but to not expect ebb and flow is stupidity, because there are humans involved, there is life involved, and there are curveballs involved, and you can't control everything. So that's just often how it is. And I think if you are not cool with that being how it's going to be for much of the time, then you're kind of in the wrong game if you build your own business, because often it's like that. But I think to neglect things because you have more fun doing other things, that's a bit of a mistake if some things you're neglecting are actually important as well. Very difficult question to answer, but without question, try and nudge everything forward each day. If a part of your business moves forward by a minor step one day, at least that's progress. That's what I always say to myself. Sometimes it's a huge amount. And when you're doing well, triple down and really kind of do the best you can to offset those rainy days when you're not doing much. If you have free time and you can sit about doing nothing, then ask yourself, is this really what I'm after? Is this something I've earned? Is this something I should be doing? If it's something you're looking toward, I've earned this time out, well then fine. But actually, if you're just dossing and procrastinating, then maybe you should be making most of this free time, which is a luxury for many, because there might be a time in the future when you desperately need, that stockpile of content or something like that. Okay, it's a really important thing. But like Daniel's just said here, trial and error is better than sitting and stewing. Absolutely. Better to just try and hack away at things. And yeah, as I said, a really difficult question there, Danny. Thanks very much for asking it. One last question here, actually, second one from Anna Suicio, which was, how do you create a schedule knowing when to spend time on what? I use the CEL approach, or CEL approach, and if you're writing notes, that if you put CEL, C stands for customer or cash flow, E stands for essential, and L stands for line of work and line of focus. Line of work and line of focus is essentially, line of work is the general space you're in. So line of work for me is startup business. And line of focus within that, the more niche focus, is sales and marketing and social media, I suppose, with many other things around it, but that's kind of the main thrust of it. Now, those three things are important and they're in order, and how I schedule my day is based on leading with things that are cash flow or new customer related, so C. They actually come first. And you might think that's crazy because we say, hang on, Richard, E is essential. That's right. Essential stuff, things that are really important that must happen that day, that actually comes second to new customers and new cash flow. I've hacked this for almost 20 years now. If you focus on the essential stuff first, such as like, I've got to get this report to this guy by today, I'll do that one first. What you're doing is to a degree, for some things, there's obviously exceptions, you're kind of letting yourself be led a bit by your emotional, like your fear of screwing up or letting someone down or something like that. If you've got the day and it's got to be done today, cool. Unless it's got something that's going to take the entire day, in which case, well, the hell are you in this position? Then actually, it can keep. If it's got to be done today, if it's essential, then that can come second to new customers or cash flow. So if there's an opportunity to close something, get it in first, because new customers solve so many problems. If something happens in the day and you lose someone, you lose customers, something goes wrong, then at least you've onboarded something new. And it's important to have that fresh feel, because otherwise you're chasing your tail when you go for the essential stuff first. That can then consume you and you end up quite far back into the day, and then you don't have much time for anything else. So it's cash flow and new customers first, then essential stuff, and then line of work and line of focus. So anything else that's relevant to your space you do next. Anything wider than that, if you ever had time, that fills in. And of course, then if it gets more urgent after a while, after several days or weeks, then that goes into the more essential category. And within all of that, I divide the day mostly into quarters. So the first quarter of the day is very much on, other than what I've said, it's very much focused on the maintenance and routine of the business, and the rest is biz deving and new things, such as getting new customers as well. So I try and focus a lot more on just making sure the company's spinning as it should, and then new things to grow it. So it's important to do that way. That's just my view on it. Let's look at some of the comments here. Hey Richard, I have an online store. I have an online store with a company. At this point, my Facebook page is the only type of information source I have. I'm considering doing a blog on my business. Do you think this may be a good move? Yes, I do. I think you need to think about your strengths, Colleen. Are you strong on video? Are you strong writing? Strong meaning where you're comfortable to a degree, but really where do you think you're at your best? If it's writing, then yeah, blog. If you're better on video, if you feel you could be better on video and fear is the problem, we need to hack against fear, so just practice it each day, because ultimately then video will help you more. If you can at all do video, you should, I feel, because that's 2018 right now. But I wouldn't say consider doing a blog for your business. My view, Colleen, is that considering to do a blog is not necessarily the right approach. My view is you should do a blog, and then after time, consider if you should carry on the blog. Same for Snapchat. You should join Snapchat, use Snapchat for some time, and then consider if you should continue Snapchat. Because you don't know until you're in the game. It's like if I play a football game, if I've never played football before, I don't know what position on the pitch I'm best at until I play some football, right? So I need to get on the pitch and try it. So great that you got the Facebook business page, but I poo-pooed Instagram. As in, what I said to myself was, oh, come on, Instagram's just a bunch of nice pictures. But I tried it. Rather than consider it, I tried it. Because considering it is basically zero experience combined with what other people have done with their thing. It's just like there's no value there. So I jumped in on Instagram and actually did really well. Same with LinkedIn. I was like, come on, we're not getting much here. But seems to be people are starting to wind up now and do quite well. So 3 months ago, I thought, well, I'll jump in again. And that, to be honest, a bit late. I should have done it earlier. And last year I called it that it would really explode, and it really is. And it's 2,000 more followers since 3 months ago. It's ridiculous. So without question, do it. Don't consider, do, and then see how it works, and then consider a business decision based on an informed, educated understanding on if you should continue. That's the consideration part. So hopefully that helps. That's the way I would look at it. Thanks, Ali G. Nice name. Hi, nice book collection. Thank you so much. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's like walls of it over there. Ibrahim, nice to see you here. Colleen, thanks very much for those comments. Hey, Rich, I'm good at communicating content, but not doing video yet. Ibrahim, that's a really good point here. So keep continuing to communicate content, try video, and then go from there. Guy called Ian Tiska, I don't know if he's on here or not, he might be checking in later. Perfect example of a guy that a couple of months ago hadn't done live video. But rather than going, oh, I don't know, he's just jumped on it. And he's like, every single day I'm going to produce live video. And the first ones, he'll agree, were terrible, but they're the same for everyone. And the first one, it was literally, hi everyone, I'm just trying live video. I'm going to be doing it every day. See you tomorrow. And that was it. 5 seconds, just participate. Every single day. After like 12 days, the guy was looking great. If you look at him now, couple of months on, he's got like a watermark, he's checking every day to go live. Fantastic. The content, the engagement's fantastic too. So he's great at communicating content, but he's also doing video because he's practiced it. So hopefully that helps. Ian, there you are here. So thanks, and hopefully you can add your 2 cents there in a comment as well on that. But we'll finish up there. Thanks so much. I wanted to check in today. I will catch up with you soon tomorrow. Ron Malhotra, I'm looking forward to doing an interview with him in the morning for The Successful Male. Check the magazine out. It's a fantastic piece of work. But I will see you all really soon. Have a wicked week and take care. Thanks a lot.